Hey guys, I don't know what hopes I held for the farce of an impeachment trial that the United States is having right now, but today I have just been infuriated by so much of the news from it. I listened to some of the impeachment trial, and it was a big mistake. So honestly, I will say that it is nice to come home and be able to just record a bookshelf tour, and just unwind doing this, and hopefully do some reading later, and maybe watch a movie too. But anyway, that's just a preamble that probably no one wants, but just know that doing this makes me happy, so I'm glad for anyone who watches me sort of ramble about these books. But anyway, we've made our way to a part of my bookshelves that I adore. This is probably my favorite genre of nonfiction that we've come to. We've come to the memoir, autobiography, biography section. I have a sweet tooth for all of those genres, memoirs in particular, but I also am starting to really like biographies more. And I'm just going to do all of my autobiographies and memoirs and such, and biographies, because it's not a huge section, because it is like one subgenre within nonfiction, and just because I want to do them all, because I feel like it makes sense to do all the biography stuff in one video. So anyway, I'm going to do it all, and so we'll get right to it, because there are a decent number. So the first one here is Prague Winter, A Personal Story of Remembrance and War, 1937 to 1948, by Madeleine Albright. We have my first copy of St. Augustine's Confessions. This translation is by Harold C. Gardner, and it's a pretty old translation, and I actually haven't read this one yet. The one that I have read is this next one, which is by Peter Constantine, which I thought was quite good. It was very readable, very easy to read. I'm not the biggest fan of the Confessions or of just Augustine in general, but that it's a good translation. Next up we have Infidel by Ayan Hirsi Ali, Nothing to be Frightened of by Julian Barnes, A Long Way Gone by Ishmael Bea, which is such an important memoir, I think, such a powerful memoir. I really, really recommend it. I Will Fight No More Forever, Chief Joseph and the Nez Perce War by Merrill Beale. The Life and Work of Harold Pinter, that on the cover is the subject of the biography when he's middle-aged, and on the back we have the subject when he was younger. Shakespeare by Anthony Burgess, a very accessible biography of the bard that I really enjoyed. Dry by Augustine Burroughs. The War for Gaul by Julius Caesar, which is a new translation that was just published last year of Caesar's commentaries on the Gallic Wars. And I have to say that Julius Caesar is an author who I have a very conflicted relationship with, because I think he was a really good writer. I found this to be incredibly readable and very fast-paced and gripping, but at the same time, the events he's reporting are of him, committing atrocities against the people of Gaul. And Julius Caesar, just in general, was, a mass murderer and just generally unpleasant human being. So it's, hard for me to just enthusiastically be like, yes, I love Julius Caesar as an author, because he was so abhorrent. I know you should separate, the work from the writer, and most of the time I can do that, but with someone who's just as horrible as Caesar was, it would be like, are you gonna praise a book by Adolf Hitler, right? I mean, maybe Julius Caesar wasn't quite as bad as Adolf Hitler, but still, I just have a conflicted relationship with him as a writer, because I enjoy reading him, but I just, don't like him as a person. And his reporting of his own atrocities continues, I'm sure, in this, which is the Civil War, which I haven't read yet, and this translation is by Jane Mitchell. And that other translation was by James O'Donnell. Brain on Fire, My Month of Madness by Susan Cahalan. I believe a new book by Susan Cahalan has just made the nonfiction BookTube Prize long list, which I'm rather excited about. So we'll see how that goes. This is Oscar, an informal biography by Francis Kenyon Carpenter. So this is a book that you won't find anywhere. It was Frances Kenyon Carpenter is my great-grandmother. She is the mother of my mother's father. And this is a biography that she wrote, a short biography that she wrote of her father, who was Oscar Curtis Kenyon. And, I couldn't recommend it to anyone who isn't a member of my family. I thought it was well written. I enjoyed it a lot. I think my family, not to tout my own home, but my family does have a good number of good writers, even if we don't all have, books published or anything like that. But still, I can't say that anyone would find it interesting except for me and people who are related to Oscar Curtis Kenyon. And it's not like you're going to find it anywhere anyway, but it's just kind of a cool thing, and I might reread it someday. It's just kind of a nice piece of family history for me, really, This is a completely different note, Washington, by Ron Chernow, his Pulitzer Prize-winning biography of the United States' first president. I won't extend from that into a commentary on the current events in America, but anyway. The next one is Geoffrey Chaucer of England by Marchette Chute. Lakota Woman by Mary Crowdog, which is very just educational on 20th century Native American issues. I think it's really good. Crowdog, Four Generations of Sioux Medicine Men by Leonard Crowdog and Richard Erdoes. The Year of Magical Thinking, which I've just recently talked about and which I love. Blue Nights by Joan Didion, her sort of sequel to The Year of Magical Thinking, which I really regret I didn't finish before I recorded my top 10 nonfiction books tag, because I honestly think that this might, in a future iteration of that tag, might make it on the list. South and West by Joan Didion. The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass by Frederick Douglass. A Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius by Dave Eggers. Mozart, His Character, His Work by Alfred Einstein. Alfred, not Albert. His Excellency George Washington by Joseph Ellis. Yeats, The Man in the Masks by Richard Ellman, who is the father of Lucy Ellman, the author of Ducks Newburyport, the book that is still seems to be all over BookTube. The Legend of Colton H. Bryant by Alexandra Fuller. Crazy Brave by Joy Harjo, who became the first Native American Poet Laureate of the United States, which is pretty cool. Disturbing the Peace by Václav Havel, which is a sort of extended interview with Václav Havel by a journalist whose name was Karel Hvizdala. Sorry. So this is a sort of extended interview with Václav Havel. And it kind of acts as a memoir, sort of. I think it would be hard for you to get that into this without really, really caring about Václav Havel already. But I found parts of it pretty interesting. He has some good commentary on sort of capitalism versus communism and the drawbacks of both of them. Childhood and Youth by Alexander Harrison. Hitch 22 by Christopher Hitchens. Hunger by Roxane Gay. My Life by Tito Gobi, who is a great 20th century opera singer. Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs. An Unquiet Mind, a Memoir of Moods and Madness by Kay Redfield Jamison, a really, really good mental health memoir. Broken, a Love Story by Lisa Jones. The Liars Club by Mary Carr. On Writing by Stephen King. My Crazy Century by Ivan Klima, a really chunky memoir of Ivan Klima growing up as a writer and an artist in Czechoslovakia. And this also includes some of his essays. Damned to Fame, The Life of Samuel Beckett by James Knowlson. Definitely the biography on my shelf that I'm most excited to get to, aside from probably Carl Sandburg's biography of Abraham Lincoln, which we'll see in a minute. Intellectual Memoirs by Mary McCarthy. Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt, which I just adored. Tis by Frank McCourt, which I adored even more. Teacher Man, which I have yet to read. Literary Life by Larry McMurtry. Roads by Larry McMurtry. This is a really kind of quirky, rambly memoir where Larry McMurtry kind of just goes on a road trip across many of the great highways of America. And he just kind of just talks about whatever he feels like, really, while he's on that road trip. You know, he usually talks a little bit about where he's going, where he's passing through. He often talks about writers from the places he's passing through, which is kind of cool. He sometimes talks a little bit about certain books, you know, that he's liked by those authors. When he's in California, he talks a little bit about his time working as a screenplay writer. When he gets into Texas, he talks a little bit about his childhood in a sort of backwater in Texas. It's really... yeah, just a really kind of rambly, quirky memoir, and I can't exactly recommend it to everyone, but definitely, if you like Larry McMurtry, you'd probably be interested in it. And I picked it up just because I like road trips, basically, and I feel like the combination of the fact that I'm into road trips and the fact that I'm into writers and, like, obviously books, made me enjoy it. So, anyway, this is Bonhoeffer, Pastor, Martyr, Prophet, Spy by Eric Metaxas. Bonhoeffer is someone who I have not read yet. I haven't read any of his books, but I want to. And I think he sounds like he lived a fascinating life. And I think, biography can be a good way to get into an author's work, and usually do include, like, some about the author's work. So it's kind of a gateway, right? This is Anne Sexton by Diane Middlebrook, one of my favorite poets. And I've already read Diane Middlebrook's other memoir, which is of Ovid, which we will see once I switch to the top of the next bookcase. We are moving bookcases now to the next bookcase, and you will get a little jump cut here. Alright, so we start the next bookcase with Young Ovid, Life Recreated, again by Diane Middlebrook, which is beautiful. It really is a wonderful piecing together of what we can know of Ovid's young life, and it's also a great analysis of some of his works, especially the Metamorphoses. It really made me excited to reread the Metamorphoses. And I thought it was also just a good sort of look at, like, Roman social structure at the time Ovid was alive. I thought it was really, really good and really beautifully written. It's a real shame Diane Middlebrook wasn't able to finish it, because if anyone doesn't know, Diane Middlebrook was writing this biography when she was diagnosed with cancer, and so she basically realized that she wasn't going to live to finish a full biography of Ovid, so she had to kind of reimagine it into just a biography of his young years, and that's how this book was produced. Yeah, so it's really unfortunate that she couldn't write the whole thing, but the book that she did get out was really good. This is Reading Lolita in Tehran by Azar Nafisi, which I liked, but didn't adore, but certainly it did produce my favorite quote of the year last year, and I'll just read it to you because I just love it so much. So the quote is, "In all great works of fiction, regardless of the grim reality they present, there is an affirmation of life against the transience of that life, an essential defiance. This affirmation lies in the way the author takes control of reality by retelling it in his own way, thus creating a new world. Every great work of art, I would declare pompously, is a celebration, an act of insubordination against the betrayals, horrors, and infidelities of life. The perfection and beauty of form rebels against the perfection and beauty of form rebels against the ugliness and shabbiness of the subject matter. This is why we love Madame Bovary and cry for Emma, why we greedily read Lolita as our heart breaks for its small, vulgar, poetic, and defiant orphaned heroine." So yeah, that was, sorry for my bungled reading, but I love that quote. This next one is Wagner as Man and Artist by Ernest Newman. The Last Empress, Madame Chiang Kai-shek and the Birth of Modern China by Hannah Pakula. This is a biography of Mei-ling Sung, who was the wife of Chiang Kai-shek, and it's really good. It was great because obviously she was there for all of the great moments of Chinese history in the first half of the 20th century, and so it also acts as a really good just history of China in the 20th century, in the first half of the 20th century anyway, and it is great. I really liked it. This is Plutarch's Live in a modern library edition. This is the John Dryden translation. What's really, really frustrating about this edition is that it's beautiful, and it has, a good translation. It's nicely done, nicely built. However, about 100 pages in it of the book are missing, and about another 100 are repeated twice. So there are like 5 or so of the lives of Plutarch that are just missing from this book completely. And I remember being so confused the day I realized it, because I didn't realize it for a long time, but I was just trying to find, the end of the life of Nicias, one of the generals in the Peloponnesian War, and it's right about, like, the last 2 pages of his life in here are cut off by the beginning of the repeated section. So that was, like, the beginning of the confusion, and yeah, I was just super weirded out for a while, like, what is going on with this volume? And yeah, so, anyway, it's just, it's unfortunate. I don't know, I'm gonna have to buy myself a new copy of Plutarch's Lives at some point. This next one is John Brown, Abolitionist, The Man Who Killed Slavery, Sparked the Civil War, and Ceded Civil Rights, by David S. Reynolds. And this is a biography of John Brown that was very kindly sent to me by Patrice Jones, who is a commenter who many of you will know if you have a channel. And she and I have done several buddy reads already. And at one point in our current buddy read of Team of Rivals, we had a moment where we both talked about how interested we were in John Brown and reading a biography of John Brown, each of us. But I also told Patrice that I was in the midst of a no-buy year where I don't buy any books. So she sort of surreptitiously had this sent to me through Amazon. So that was a great surprise. And she and I are going to be buddy reading that later in the year. Alright, we're not moving too far distant in time. This is Abraham Lincoln by Carl Sandburg, which is in such horrible condition, and it really is all my fault. I tried to reinforce it with tape and really bungled the job, but I wanted to keep the book for now so that I can read it, because I've heard this is a great biography of Abraham Lincoln. This is Asata, an autobiography by Asata Shakur. Bubbles, a self-portrait by Beverly Sills. I Put a Spell on You, the autobiography of Nina Simone. Wild by Cheryl Strayed. The 12 Caesars by Suetonius. Devil in the Details, Scenes from an Obsessive Girlhood by Jennifer Traig. One Native Life by Richard Wagamese, which is a memoir about Richard Wagamese's life growing up in foster homes. He is Ojibwe, and his parents weren't able to take care of him, so he was sort of, when he was very young, adopted out into other families, largely white families, and it's about his childhood struggling through his sort of lack of identity, you know, being Native American, but being raised by whites who don't really understand his culture. And it's just about him sort of finding his way in life. You know, he struggled with alcohol, he struggled with the sort of legacy of his family and his parents, and sort of about him finding literature and starting to write and such. And I have to say that there is one passage in here in particular, there's one chapter where he tells the story of his time reading Finnegan's Wake for the first time, and Finnegan's Wake was like his gateway into literature, which is, you know, as far as setting a bar when you come in, it was quite high. But he tells this wonderful anecdote about reading Finnegan's Wake that I absolutely loved it. The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. Night by Elie Wiesel. Up from Slavery by Booker T. Washington. And finally, we have Erasmus of Rotterdam by Stefan Zweig. So anyway, that is my autobiography, biography, and memoir section. You know, as always, give me your thoughts on any of the books that you are interested in, and I hope you all enjoyed. I apologize for my grim beginning about the state of the United States, but anyway, I will sign off for now and go start reading. So anyway, thanks for watching. Bye, guys.